Admiraljoshhar here, and I just saw the movie Les Miserables, starring Hugh Jackman as Jean Valjean, Russell Crowe as Inspector Javert, and Anne Hathaway as Fantine. Now, I've heard a lot of criticisms about the movie. Russell Crowe can't sing, Hugh Jackman's mediocre at best, the story's not great, it's been done over and over again. I've heard several different things. I agree with a few, and I disagree with a lot. I thought it was a good movie. Not the best movie I've ever seen, not the best movie of 2012, but pretty good. Let me point out a few. The basic storyline is Jean Valjean is a man who served 19 years in prison for stealing bread for his niece. And he's being chased by Inspector Javert because he broke parole when he decided to change his life. So on and so forth. He meets up with this woman named Fantine who used to work under him, but another guy who worked under him fired her, so she blamed him, blah blah blah. She has a daughter. She dies. Hugh Jackman blames himself, and also she blames him, but before she dies, but he blames himself, takes on her daughter as his own while being chased by Javert. There's a revolution a few years later when Cosette, the daughter Cosette, is older. There's a love story, etc. If you don't know the story, then I highly recommend watching it, or one of the other versions, or reading the book. This is the very first version of Les Miserables I've seen, so I'm judging entirely by the movie. I'm planning on reading other versions and watching other versions later, but right now I'm judging entirely on the Hugh Jackman version. I liked it, like I said. When I first watched this, I watched the first half hour with the musical, and I had no idea what was going on. So I came up with an idea. I started over and turned subtitles on. Very good idea. I highly recommend it if you don't know the story, because that tells you the story. You still get the songs, which 2 or 3 of them were beautiful, really stood out at me. The first song especially, Look Down, that really jumped out at me. That's my favorite song in the whole musical. You get the story, and still, the first half hour to an hour didn't really jump out at me. I was just like, okay, cool, I like Jean Valjean. These other characters are just kind of meh. But after the first hour, after Anne Hathaway's character dies, and we're introduced to Cosette, and then a few years later she's grown up, that's when I really got interested, because we go from Jean Valjean being the main character to Jean Valjean being a character, and not even a major character, of an ensemble cast. So we get multiple characters, different backgrounds, different personalities, and one of those is my second favorite character of the movie, Eponine. I'll get further into that later. Let me explain some of the characters, what I like about him. Jean Valjean, I like him. He's my favorite character. He is a moral man. He does the right thing. You can thoroughly identify him. Even when he starts out, when he's mad at the world, mad at God, you can understand that. He's been in prison for 19 years for stealing bread for his hungry niece. I mean, that does feel like injustice to him, but he's forgiven. He ends up being a mayor, and then his life crashes down again because he chooses to do the right thing. But then his life builds up again with Cosette, and then crashes down again. But ultimately, he has a happy ending. I'll get into that later. My second favorite character is Eponine. She is Cosette's sort of stepsister, adopted. They're not really related by blood, but they were like sisters for a while, I guess. Eponine is an interesting character because she's part of a love triangle between Cosette, Eponine, and the other male lead, if you will, or not male lead, but third male lead, I guess, Marius. And Eponine is in love with Marius, but Marius falls in love with Cosette, and Cosette with Marius. So at first, Eponine is kind of selfish about it. I mean, she doesn't have anything against Cosette. She doesn't try to actively break them apart or anything. In fact, she helps out Jean Valjean and Cosette when her father tries to rob his house, she stops it with a scream. But the problem is, or the sad thing is, she really loves Marius. And she loves him so much that in the end, she dies for him. She sacrifices her life, and with her dying breath, with her dying breath, she kisses him, and he kisses her back in that version. Or I'm remembering wrong. It's been a couple hours since I watched it. Plus, it's like almost 2 a.m. But she gives him a note that Cosette had left for Marius. So in the end, she's saying, okay, you love her, go to her, and also I'm dead anyway. So yeah. And he realizes that he does kind of have a bit of feelings for her. Not near as much as Cosette, but he does have some feelings for her. So that's why she's my second favorite character, because she does the right thing as well, even though it's thoroughly unselfish of her to do the right thing. She has a moment of weakness. She's human. Every human has a moment of weakness, but she, like Jean Valjean, she does the right thing in the end, and ultimately her death is meaningful. She saves the life of Marius and gives him the note that Cosette left for him, which he would have gotten the note anyway, and probably sooner, but it just, I like Eponine. It's hard to describe why other than that, because she does the right thing. And, okay, now let's go into what I really hated about the movie. The constant singing! Every line! Even the unimportant ones, the little bitty bit lines like, how are you today? Yeah. The whole movie. And about the singers themselves. Hugh Jackman. He's not bad. Not the greatest singer ever. Not terrible. He's a former Broadway singer, so, and you can tell, he does pretty well. He has pretty good vocal range, and he's not bad. Now let's go to the one that everybody criticized, Russell Crowe. I don't hate him. He's not the worst singer ever. Okay? He's not great. He shouldn't have sung. He should have spoken most of his lines. A few of the songs, sure, you gotta have Javert singing them. But I don't see why everybody says he's such a horrible, horrible singer. I mean, okay, maybe on the big screen it would have been bad. I watched it on a small TV with not super great sound quality. And it didn't really distract me from the story, especially with the subtitles, because I was reading and hearing at the same time, singing. So, and that's one thing I do like about musicals in general, especially Les Miserables. It's like reading a book, because the characters are singing what they're thinking, and you assume that other characters aren't always hearing what they're singing because it's like thoughts. So it's like reading a book. I like that about musicals. And Les Miserables, as far as musicals go, it's my new favorite. My old favorite was The Unsinkable Molly Brown, but my current favorite is Les Miserables. That's my favorite musical now. What else? There's a lot of sad moments in it. Really good songs, 2 or 3 of them. Again, Look Down is one of my favorite songs, is my favorite song from the movie. The beautiful I Dreamed a Dream, that is probably the most well-known song of this movie. I enjoyed it. And that's about it. This is actually like the 3rd time I've recorded this. The first time I got like 10 minutes, but I couldn't remember Eponine's name, so I went through the whole thing going, that girl, which I really hated because she was my favorite character, or second favorite after Jean Valjean. The second video was 25 minutes, and apparently I can't upload anything under 15, so I'm coming on 10 now, so I've really skimmed through it. Haven't really gone into detail. Just leave me comments if you want to know more about what I thought. Comment on what you thought of the movie, and whether you agree or disagree with my with what I liked about it. Yep. Oh, and by the way, Anne Hathaway's character, Fantine, not really a memorable character except for her song. I really sympathize with her. Don't get me wrong, I'm not cold-hearted. I really sympathize with her. I mean, I feel exactly like like Hugh Jackman's character did. You just want to go up and give her a hug and say, "Oh, everything's going to be all right." It's, even though it's not, but that's just the type of character she played. And Anne Hathaway played it awesomely. I can't really picture anyone else in that position now. I'm going to watch another version of it, the Gerard Depardieu version, eventually, but for now, this is the definitive version for me, just because it's the first one I've seen. I'm going to compare everything else to this. I'm even going to go read the Victor Hugo book at some point, which, again, for people who don't know, Les Miserables was written by the same guy who wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Not the Disney version, the real Hunchback of Notre Dame. Same guy. But for a movie called Les Miserables, it has a pretty good ending. You have 3 people with a happy ending, if you count Jean Valjean, which I do. You got Marius and you got Cosette, who have a happy ending. They get married. And Jean Valjean, even though he dies, also has a happy ending, because he dies knowing that the person he cares about most, Cosette, is going to be taken care of. That she's going to be married to a guy who really cares for her, even though he's only known her for like a day. But he dies happy. After his horrible life, he dies happy. And that is why I like this movie. Because with all the death, with all the sadness and the misery, it has a happy ending for at least 3 characters. And that kind of reflects life. You have several people dying, several people have a sad ending, but some people have a happy ending. And that's better than Disney, because in Disney, everybody has a happy ending. But in this, only some do. And that makes it all the more meaningful. That's why I think Les Miserables is a beautiful story. It really brings your emotions into it once you can understand it. Again, I wish they wouldn't have sung every line, but if you turn on the subtitles, you know this or know the story, makes a difference. So again, I like Les Miserables. I'd give it 4 out of 5 stars, and it's my favorite musical of 2012. We'll say that. It's my favorite musical of all the ones I've seen. I haven't seen a lot, but I've seen some. Alrighty, again, leave a comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching for the almost 13 minutes now. So, alrighty, I will see you next time when eventually I am going to review The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I promise. Adios.